Hey guys, what's going on? This is GT Superfan Yuri. So today we're checking out a really cool bike in my collection. This is actually, believe it or not, it's a bike I've had for about 20 years. I got this brand new back in 1999 from my mom. She surprised me with it. Pretty cool bike. Ended up buying this, or this bike ended up getting purchased at a place called Lou's Columbia Cycle, which was on Fruitvale in Yakima. It was this one bike shop. This guy and his wife, Lou and Linda Miley, they owned this one bike shop. They sold Norcos, Mongoose. They had a BMX Mongoose Aftershock, if anybody knows that bike. And they had kind of middle price point to low end price point GTs. So you wouldn't necessarily, you'd see like maybe the GT LTS elastomer stuff, but you'd never see like the GT LTS or even the RTS or bikes at the time, you know, or even a Zaskar. I don't ever recall seeing a Zaskar, but there are plenty of Tequestas, Ricochets, Avalanches, you know, all still really awesome bikes, Panteras. So anyway, when the new GT catalog came out, I would go to this bike shop probably maybe like once a week, because my mom was a nurse at a nursing home up there, and I saw this bike. And you know, great, you know, I mean, other than it being dirty, right? Like the colors, it was just black and yellow, which are actually one of my favorite color combinations. And it's not because of the Pittsburgh Steelers situation at all. And I loved it, and it was the freshest looking bike. Anyway, my mom always noticed every time I went to this bike shop, I was test riding it, but of course we never bought it. And I think just because I was doing successfully well, you know, in my mountain bike stuff, like in cross country and my downhill, like it was time for me to get a new bike. And she surprised me with this. And you know, back in the day, this bike, I remember my mom, I think, nagged the price down to $750, if I remember. So, and it had a really awesome, it was like I want to say it was a 3x8 Shimano Dior, and I want to say STX, but I could, or no, LX, because I just replaced the rear derailleur. So let's go over to the bike, front to back. And so here, actually, I will say, most favorite trail bike I have, it's actually probably my most favorite bike right now. I took it out for a test ride, and shout out to my favorite bike shop in the world, Go Huck Yourself Bikes. A.J. Johnson and his crew did an awesome job putting it together, because I don't have the acumen to put hydraulic brakes and dial them in as good as they have it down to an art. So I'd rather pay money and have a bike feel 100% spanking fresh and awesome than have a crap job and be like, this bike feels like crap. So it gives me the peace of mind and lets me enjoy the ride. It's so worth it. So here, I upgraded the brakes. I was originally running the V-brake. It was running Pro Max V-brakes on here, you know, the original brakes that came on this bike. I decided to upgrade to the Magura HS. These are the HS33Rs. Pretty awesome. They come with 2 brake boosters here, and if your tire's too fat, you can just swing this down, pull out the whole unit, and then it'll give you enough space to just remove the tire, if you do run something like that. Awesome brakes. You can flex the rear out, so it's important that, you know, like, you don't overly abuse it. This frame is held up for the time being. I love it though. I honestly, if I cracked the frame, it'd be an art piece I'd hang up in the garage. So but I wanted to do something where you know, I could enjoy this bike, and it just speaks to GT's real how durable and awesome the bikes were. And yeah, the beautiful hand built in Southern California sticker, and I was always proud of that sticker. You know, to see that on the GTs, I was like, that's just a badass bike. But yeah, these brakes you can get, I think, for roughly ballpark as much as a Magura MT5, maybe a little bit more, 135, through most bike shops. Just depends. I think it fluxes like 135 to even up to 200. So make sure you shop around with your bike shops to know what offers are out there. Here I also what inspired me to do the whole entire rebuild, I owe it to the seat tube. This is, I took some digitals. This came out to a 27.2 clamp diameter for the seat post, or I mean, it could fit a 27.2 dropper post. So I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna switch it. I'm gonna switch out the rigid, put on a P&W. This is a P&W pine dropper. It's awesome. It has a nice sorry, I'm like bouncing around here, external mount, because you can't internally route this, and I'm not going to drill into the frame. And so the way the shop did it is, oh, I just want to let people know, somebody was like, shouldn't there be a slat here on the GT forum? And people were commenting that it was like a manufacturing defect. No, it's not a manufacturing defect. I mean, who routes their whole entire cable as a hole and through there? That's like, no, you just slide it through the hole, you know, and then route it. So really, I saw a lot of people thought that was a manufacturing defect. It is not. So what they did instead is we used, or GHY, because I bought the wrong lever. I'll explain that later. What GHY did is they just used the existing cable stop here for the V-brake and used it for the external, so that way it kind of stayed tidy, and it runs underneath here. I haven't had any issues. Look at that. Like, yeah, nobody's probably seen these in like ages, and it just routes through the old where the rear V-brake would have gone. Here, you know, of course, a little $4 water bottle cage, nothing fancy. So to the dropper post lever, this is a wolf tooth light action lever, really awesome. Let's see, you don't need much force on it, and the cool part is it's designed, if you ever crash, the one part will break will be this. It's this little $5 piece, and it's really awesome. Barrel adjust, and this will accept both the cable end and a cable head, so you can, it's compatible with many different types of droppers. So it's a good buy. It's about 70 bucks, and they come in various colors. I picked gold to match the Chris King headset. You know, also I will say for the Magura HS33Rs, these are metal clamps, unlike the carbotexture that you find in MT5 and I think the MT7s as well. So it's really nice to have these. These are very weighty though, so they are for sure heavier brake, but I mean, the braking on the HS33Rs on this bike with this wheel combination, and I didn't put pine tar or anything, any special prep, it stops actually, I want to say, as good, maybe better than many Shimano single piston hydraulic brakes that you'd find on an entry-level bike. Actually, I have friends with single pot or single piston or two piston Shimano XT brakes, and the modulation on the Magura rim brakes actually feels better, and the braking feels stronger. But you know, it's, you know, they have different, you know, they have 29er and 27.5 wheels. This is a 26 wheel setup, 26-inch wheel setup, an old school 26er. I couldn't put a disc brake unless I wanted to get that that adapter to it, and it's just like just like it to me, it was it wasn't aesthetically pleasing. So I was like, you know, the Magura rim brakes, I want to have a nice kind of trail and trials bike, so this is how I'm gonna run it. I'm gonna run it with rim brakes, and it does awesome. Like, it was muddy, as you can tell, and I mean, it felt like I had disc brakes on rim brakes. I mean, that's how good these brakes are. Here, oh yeah, here this runs the, if anybody recognizes this is the Altera GT's in-house brand handlebar that was originally on my GT LTS sensor, but I decided to swap that out with a Spank handlebar, and I love the sweep on this handlebar. It has a nice, it looks like to me, a nice trials handlebar sweep and width, so that's why I moved it to this bike. Here you'll also find that I took the original stem from the GT Zascar Carbon Pro and put it on here too. So that's what's on here. It's 31.8 millimeter clamp diameter with a 1 1/8 stir tube clamp diameter, and the length on here is like pretty I mean, long for some people, but you know, I find set like 60 is not a big issue for me, so I like it like this. And of course, the wonderful shout out to Chris King. They make a wonderful headset, easy to clean out in the winters, and you know, just take care of. Super simple, really durable. And of course, P&W droppers, they make an awesome dropper post. The length on here, I want to say it's 150, or I mean not 150, it's 100 millimeters, just because this is a 16-inch frame. I'm 5'6", and it fits me on a little bit on the smaller end, but for me wanting to do trial stuff, I like it a little bit smaller, just because it's easier to pull off certain tricks and moves. And the frame is the original sticker. It's 7000 series heat treated aluminum, and I love this bike. It's special to me not only because my mom had surprised me with it as a gift, but I mean, could you imagine back in the day when you're growing up, you know, like in like a lot of you kids who are probably, you know, younger than the age of 20, I don't know, who never mountain bike in the 90s, I will just explain this much. Back in the day, you could downhill mountain bike race on a hardtail, and it was on a triple chain ring many times, looked like maybe looked like a road bike, 48 tooth up front, and you know, like you had maybe a 34 tooth, like that was the big range back then, I think. And so this bike used to be my trials competition bike. It used to be my street trials bike for fun. Was my cross-country bike, my downhill bike, and my slalom bike. And near the end of dual slalom, when 4-cross was happening, this was my 4-cross bike. And I had pretty much, I didn't have a setup as good. Like, I was rocking the Tioga headset. I think the width, I had a flat bar, and it was running maybe 580 millimeters wide, which is pretty narrow by today's. I hopped the old GT RTS3 that I have. Oh my god, like I'm like, I don't know how I raced and did tricks on it. So I mean, Hans Ray just rebuilt his bike. Check him out too, his NASCAR. And you know, he was even puzzled, like, I don't know how we were just able to kick so much ass, but I think, you know, there's such a certain skill to riding these bikes. Anyway, how this bike rides is fantastic. Even the bike shop people, even the guys at JHY were impressed with how perfect, like, it feels. It's no, I'm not knocking on, like, the new GT bikes, but if you want a bike to throw around that is like the generalist bike, you want a good trail, trials, whatever bike, like, and you're okay with rim brakes, find a frame that will fit a 27.2 or whatever, like the standard dropper post, and that can be outfitted this way. And it's just amazing. Like, the geometry numbers here are set up like cross country. It's like a 70, I think it's a 71 degree head tube, but this is a 100 millimeter RockShox XC28 fork. They don't make it anymore. You know, I think right now you can still find old stock new, the RockShox Recon for 26ers with the brake bosses, or the XC30s. And so if you get an XC30, it'll be about, I think, 170 bucks. And if you could find it, I think Jensen's one of the last and Worldwide Cycle Rear, the last bastions that have it. And then the Air Fork, which is, I think, the Recon for 26, still with brake bosses and a quick release and up front, and also disc brake compatible. Those will run you about, I think, 250 ballpark. So just be mindful of that if you want to upgrade. I have to be careful on this fork. I notice long term these forks are starting to wear out, even after, definitely a budget fork. Even after a year, like, you know, you try to care for them. And the only sad part is the parts on these, some of the parts are only available in Europe. So when you're trying to service these and parts are worn or whatever, you kind of just have to make do, because they won't import them to the United States. And if they do, the cost just doesn't justify the price of the fork. So, you know, kind of sad, but I think eventually I'm just going to move over my rebuilt by Jerry Vanderpool, the sit on here, and see what happens, lighten this frame up a little bit. It should be pretty fun. But also, I might get the Recon fork too. I probably will get the Recon fork. Oh yeah, sorry, I get caught up. Like, I'm so excited about the bike. Always run platform pedals. Here I run a Rock. I had Shimano. This is a Shimano a 170 millimeter length crank arm, a Shimano DR crank arm, mounted to a race face 32 tooth narrow wide chainring with a 1142 tooth rear Sunrace cassette on a SRAM chain, and it was a really good chain. Shifts really nicely, you know, and of course this is a Shimano DR 10-speed without a clutch, rear derailleur, and I bought this on eBay for like, I think, what is it, $25, so it's a really good bargain buy. I bought a few of these. You can actually get the 10-speed Shimano Saint, or I mean not Saint, Z shifter. No, what is this? Gosh, yeah, it's the Shimano Z shifter, the 10-speed Z shifter, for about, I think, less than 22 bucks, or no, $25, under $25. So if you're trying to do a build on the cheap, it's a good way to go. And this is a long SGS cage on here, I believe, so it accommodates this, and you don't need the wolf tooth extend, the goat link or wolf tooth goat link on here. I thought you did, but you actually don't, which is nice for 42 tooth range. So I'm like, dang, if I were to upgrade the cassette to a larger range, could we pull it off? And I might experiment with that. I'll have to consult with my local bike shop and see, because I don't want to do this and then find out it doesn't work. So the gearing on here is awesome. I took it up some punchy climbs up at Tapeworm, my favorite trail, and I mean, oh my god, just feels like I have still the right amount of power. And I think the smaller wheels helps, because you can, it's almost like a BMX bike, a 20-inch BMX bike. You can accelerate the speed the hell out of it really fast versus a larger wheel. So this mates nicely to a 26-inch wheel. I love it. So here, I think I'm just gonna wear out the the Continental Race King 2.2s, and they're a really fast rolling tire. I was riding them in the mud, and I mean they grip pretty well. I don't know if I'd buy them again now that I've had you know, I've tried out Vittoria Mezcals and Barzos, but these are an exceptionally fast tire, I will give it that. And even in the mud and in the wet roots, pretty good traction. So if I think I found them on a good sale, I'd probably buy another pair in case. But otherwise, I think I would try to experiment with the Vittorias and see how much I like them. I did get a flat because I'm running inner tubes on these, and so they do have I went old school. They run Tuffy liners, just because these are not tubeless ready tires at all, and these are not tubeless ready rims. So it just is kind of like, it would be too much of a pain. And if I don't ride this, you know, it's just another bike I have to do a big service to every 6 months out of my fleet of like over a dozen. So just to keep it simple, throw in some Tuffy liners. I don't mind a weight penalty. I mean, I'm pretty chubby, so if I lose like 10 pounds off my body, it doesn't, you know, it's not a big deal compared to like a few grams added to the wheels. So rather be fit than, you know, try to buy my fitness. So other than that, you know, these are the rear wheels that people have asked me about. I've gotten messages. These are the Vuelta Zero lights in the white, or these are the white rimmed Vuelta Zero lights without the disc brake hub. And Bike Nash Bar used to sell these for like under $100 now. Like they're ballpark $150. So just be aware of that. If you really, I really love these wheels because they're very strong. Really durable. They've held up through a lot of stuff. I don't know how they're gonna do long term with the Magura's mated on them, but I have another pair anyway, so I could just keep replacing them and until, you know, I start crying. Then I have to go to the black and red rimmed versions, which aren't bad. It just depends. So we'll see. We'll play this out. Other than that, I think that is just pretty much covers it all for literally the best trails and trial bike I have ridden. Like there's it's unbelievably awesome how great this bike performs. I was hanging out with some friends, and I mean, I was pulling the the group through an 8-mile ride, well, almost an 8-mile ride till they got to flat tire. Then I had to ride home. I had to ride to a parking lot with a front flat tire. But I mean, I was pulling it, and I had this bike is a lot more agile than my Zasker Carbon Pro, and definitely not as light. I think this is closer to a 30-pound bike. And I mean, I would put this up here if my 2018 GT Zasker Carbon Pro and this bike are competing. It would be hard to give whichever one the first place medal, because they respectively perform. It's very weird. This bike feels like the Zasker Carbon Pro, except it's smaller and it runs rim brakes, and it weighs a little heavier. But I mean, they both have a certain feeling of agility, but this bike actually feels so so durable. There isn't a creak. This is the only bike, believe it or not. I don't know if it's because of how I spec'd it or it's because of the frame build, but this is the only bike that does not creak on me in the bottom bracket, in like anywhere in the pivots, or anywhere. So I'm really proud of this bike. I'm happy that I decided to do a cool retro mod with it. Oh yeah, sorry, I keep forgetting. It runs the Pro Logo satellite, as you guys know. I love the Pro Logo stuff. This is a I think this is a 147 width saddle, and of course the Race Face. I shout out to Race Face for their half Nelson grips. I love them for all my bikes practically. Actually, they are my favorite grips in the world. So, I mean, overall, it's the coolest retro build, and surprisingly the most impressive one yet. So, I wish I could do this to an RTS and an LTS, a GT LTS build, but they don't have, they can't accommodate dropper posts at all, and I'm not going to put a height rate on them. So, for now, this is actually probably going to be my daily all-around bike, just because it's so badass. Yeah, if you look at it, right, I mean, you could get away with it as a cruiser, like a commuter bike. You could get away with it as a trail bike. Like, I mean, it just fits the bill in so many ways. Like, even at the jumps, like, geez, this bike is so awesome. So I absolutely my favorite bike, and maybe the bias is just because, like, it was a gift from my mom, and I've held on to it for all these years. It's helped me. It's led me to many podiums, like, throughout its time, and and I thought nothing would be more fitting than to bring the glory of this bike back, and with all the wonderful parts, like new Magura brakes, a dropper post, a 1x10. And just kind of the coolest gadgets you can put on a retro bike. I mean, it just makes this bike really, really fantastic, and it shows the wonderful durability of a real GT frame, back in the days when, I mean, a product that the late Gary Turner, the late Richard Long would be super proud of, and definitely Gary Turner would be, because this is like really a true piece of GT history on how wonderful and strong this frame is, because I have put this bike through so much abuse, and it's always been there for me. So, and it's actually the only bike where I probably beat up on it and it's never broken. Like, I haven't cracked this frame, so not yet. I hope I don't pull it off with the rim brakes, but regardless, it will always be retired with me, and I will always hold on to this no matter what happens to this bike. So it's always going to be part of my life. That said, if you have any questions about the bike, feel free to hit me up. Always glad to interact with all of you. I'll do some shredded edits. The weather's starting to look better, so I'm excited about that. Because now we're past the December month and we're heading into February, and excited for that. So that I just don't want to go off any wood stuff because I've slid off wood stuff and I gotten hurt, and I'm not going to do it until like the weather is so dry that I'm not going to slip. But other than that, love interacting. Thanks for hanging out. If you have any questions, or you just need help on any kind of, like, suggestions for upgrading your own bike, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer them. As for now, this is Yuri with the GT Nutz Superfan Group. And as always, thanks for watching. Love you guys. Take care. Bye.